Alright guys, so just want to do a quick little kind of recap of Chapter 17 here. So for Chapter 17, this is a chapter where it goes over a lot of debits and credits and dealing with closing statements and closing disclosures and things like that. So just to give a quick recap, I wrote it up here on the board. A credit for the purpose of doing a closing statement is a revenue or anything applied towards the purchase price, and a debit is going to be an expense, money you're spending that you'll never see again. And you'll see a bunch of these as an example on page 359. So if you guys go to page 359 and want to look at some examples of things that might be debits, things that might be credits, you're going to have a bunch of examples there. But the two main examples that I want to go over, two of the more commonly asked examples I would imagine on the test, are prepaid property taxes and a realty transfer tax. So the first one, prepaid property taxes. So as an example, let's say I own a home, I'm selling it, and I have paid my entire first quarter property taxes. I paid my property taxes for January, for February, and for March. So again, I paid my property tax for January, February, and March. And my house is selling, and my house is going to close on February 10th. So in other words, when the buyer's buying my house, I've paid their property tax bill for the rest of February and for the rest of March. So at closing, do I deserve money back for paying their property tax bill? I do. So when I, as a seller, get money back at closing, it's going to come to me in the form of a credit. So when you have prepaid property taxes, the seller gets a credit at closing, and who pays that? The buyer pays that. It would be a debit to the buyer. So for prepaid property taxes here, the first example, how would it be reflected on a closing statement? It would be a credit for the seller gets money back at closing, and a debit for the buyer, because the buyer pays that money. Then we have the realty transfer tax here. The realty transfer tax is a transfer tax that sellers pay in the state of New Jersey. If it's above $1 million, the buyer has to chip in with this thing called a mansion tax, but we're not going to worry about that. Let's assume the sales price was below $1 million, it was a $500,000 sale, and the seller has to pay a realty transfer fee, a realty transfer tax. How is this going to be reflected on the closing statement? Well, who pays it? The seller pays it. So therefore, if the seller pays it, it's a debit to the seller. So again, the realty transfer fee, the realty transfer tax, it's a debit to the seller. Prepaid property taxes, when the seller gets back money at closing, it's a credit to the seller. It's going to be a debit to the buyer. So again, quick recap on some of the main points of Chapter 17 here. Hope these help. As always, feel free to email me. My email is kylekovats@gmail.com. Thank you.